Welcome, and thank you for joining us for today's DealerOn webinar, From Caveman to Calculator, 7 Evolutionary Steps to Mastering Digital Spend in Google Analytics. My name is Eliana Raggio, and I'll be your moderator today. Today's webinar is being presented by DealerOn. For anyone who isn't familiar with DealerOn, we're an award-winning website development company and digital agency, best known for our amazing SEO, the best customer service, and the highest converting website designs in the industry, including the award-winning Chameleon responsive website platform. We're so committed to lead conversion, optimization, and customer service that DealerOn is still the only company in the industry that offers a money-back lead guarantee program. Does your website company guarantee you a 50% lift in leads or your money back? Well, maybe you should check us out at our gorgeous brand new DealerOn website at DealerOn.com. Also, DealerOn is going to be hosting another Top Golf event. This time it's in Scottsdale, Arizona on December 7th. Yes, you heard it, it's golf, Google, and cocktails. That is a recipe for awesomeness. Space is limited though, so if you'd like more info on this amazing event, please check out tinyurl.com/ScottsdaleTG. Oh, and yeah, I forgot to mention almost, all of this stuff is free, so we hope to see you there. We have a great show in store for you today. We're very pleased to have two great presenters today. First, Joe Webb is the president of DealerKnows, an internet sales, BDC process, and digital marketing consulting firm specializing in the automotive industry. He maximizes companies' online investments through on-site training, virtual consulting, and the industry's first lead management coaching software. Joe has been called the funniest guy in the car business and passionately speaks and consults internationally across multiple industries. He films comedic videos about car sales that are almost entertaining. He writes for countless publications and online resource sites and is viewed as one of the top process improvement experts in retail. With a history of retail success, Joe is best known for blending the lines between entertainment and education, and he can be reached at joe@dealerknows.com. Now, joining Joe Webb today is Omeed Kazemi, Director of Growth Analytics at CarStory, a company focused on big data strategies to more efficiently market used vehicles. Raised in Florida, Omeed had big dreams of becoming an NBA star. Well, that was until his parents and doctors told him that he probably wouldn't grow taller than 5'11". His second passion was numbers, so he went to school to study accounting and took a job in financial data analytics at a consulting firm. He was swept up in the internet funding craze of 2011 and joined a startup building up their analytics and business intelligence team. His primary focus from day one was auditing and optimizing digital user acquisition budgets and assessing channel effectiveness to grow user-level ROI. From there on, his experience spans from finance and business operation roles with a primary focus on maximizing revenue. He can be reached at okazemi@vast.com. Now, during the presentation, if you have any questions, please use the question feature located on the corner of your screen to submit them. At the end of the presentation, we'll answer those questions of general interest. If we're unable to get to your question live, we're going to try to respond by email later today. Don't forget, a link to download a copy of this webinar recording will be emailed to you later today for your reference, and feel free to share it with your friends and colleagues. And guess what? Our good friends over at CarStory are giving away an awesome prize on today's webinar. One lucky attendee is going to win a $100 Amazon gift card. That's an awesome prize with the holidays right around the corner. You have to be on the live broadcast to win it, though, so stay tuned, and you could be the one walking away with this awesome prize today. And at the conclusion of this webinar, you're going to get a short survey, so fill it out. We're always looking for quality feedback from our audience. We want to hear what you have to say. And hey, do you tweet much? We hope you do. We'd love to see what you have to say about today's presentation, so please tag us in it. You can use hashtag DealerOnWebby. I'm at Eliana Raggio. You can also hit up Joe Webb at ZoneWeb, and Omeed is at CarStory Dealer. We look forward to seeing what you're saying. So let's get started. From Caveman to Calculator, 7 Evolutionary Steps to Mastering Digital Spend in Google Analytics. Joe and Omeed, how are you guys?
Excellent, and thank you for having us. And I definitely want to say thank you to DealerOn, not just for the continued webinar series, but I was able to attend the Top Golf event in Tampa yesterday, which was a blast.
Oh, good.
I strongly advise everybody to go to it. They've got a great group of speakers there, and Sean Raines is there too. So it is definitely worth your while.
He meant that with all the love in the world, Sean, if you're listening. And Omeed, it's your first time here. Yes. Omeed, it's your first time here on a DealerOn webinar, so welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to get this started.
Now, fortunately, I was able to get a sneak peek at the slide deck today, and it is amazing, and I cannot wait to see the rest of the presentation. I know you guys have a lot to get to, so Joe, please, why don't you tell the audience the kinds of things we're going to be learning about today?
Absolutely. So first of all, let me just say that the concept of from caveman to calculator, in this instance, I am the caveman. I am the dumb one. I knew well enough in retail what I needed to look at. Google Analytics, I think, reared its head in 2005 or so, if I'm correct, Omeed. But over the years, I've come to find that analytics from Google, because they do not have a horse in the race, so to speak, is insanely useful to understanding your budgets. But much like cavemen, they really didn't know exactly what to do with the tools when they were introduced. So, you know, our own abilities have expanded as marketing agents and as e-commerce directors. The more we're able to invest our time and energy and effort in understanding our Google Analytics. I learned from people like Omeed, who is the human calculator in this equation. So some of the things we're going to be covering, obviously, as the 7 steps, is the things that are most valuable to you, the objectives, if you will be what websites really are used for when it comes to their interaction, the awareness, whether or not they're used for information or education, understanding your environment, how to measure not just your website and your goals, but your third-party tools inside analytics, how to analyze your channel spends, and then moreover, how to what metrics you should be thinking about or rethinking about as you measure your investment in money through Google Analytics. So, I mean, we can jump on to the next one. I mean, right off the bat, I'd like to talk about housekeeping, which we sort of call a caveman would be cleaning up your cave. So when I say cleaning up your cave, I'm talking about your website. You need to recognize from a website perspective, moving on one more, from website perspective, you need to have very clear paths as to what your customers are looking at. Before we even get into Google Analytics, understand everything is invested in your website. Every single dollar you spend in advertising, if not to drive foot traffic to your store, is meant to get eyeballs on your website. So what do consumers want? What do they not want? Because there are a lot of things out there where we think they want it, but they actually don't. We've got to start learning what draws people's eyes, and really optimizing those click paths internally through your site. The better you can channel somebody down through your website, the better you'll understand in Google Analytics what is working for you and what is not working for you.
Very well said, Joe. And this is a snapshot of actually a hometown dealer from the area I grew up in, Southwest Florida. And just so happens it's a DealerOn Power website. I've added the hearts on top of the graphic, which I'll speak to in a second. But the general layout, and I think the general theme that we are kind of going to cover in this first point is, from the consumer's perspective, how streamlined is your user experience? And what I like most about this example is the ease of use for the user. Notice that the search in the dominant part of the page layout, it's right there in front of you, and it teases the inventory that is awaiting the user. The additional view inventory will go to the SRP and provide that same view of inventory, and that's one of the actions that the dealer has determined is very useful for converting. I also like how the chat is hidden with a contrasting color against the background so that the user knows it's there, but it's not floating around and objecting from higher converting portions of the homepage. And then the final part, that bottom 2 call to actions, the special offers and the trade-in evaluator, are cleanly presented with simple explanations and one button that will entice the action. I just think this is a great homepage layout to land on.
So internally on the site, as a customer starts engaging with your website, they start drilling down farther. And we need to understand, you can move it on. We need to understand essentially what the goal of the website is. In a lot of ways, here's an example of what I would consider a subpar vehicle details page. And just in an instance, if you think about what the customer's already experienced, like per Google, they've been to 19 different digital, digital touch points before visiting a dealership, and we have to say they've already accumulated so much information about the car that when they're starting to look at specific pieces of inventory, the fact that we're identifying, I think it's like either rear intermittent wipers or illuminated vanity mirrors, the fact that we're mentioning that 6 times on a VIN Vomit VDP is a mistake. So we need to make our VDPs very clean and recognizing like what value does your merchandising need to deliver for the customers. Are you sharing pricing? Are you sharing your? Are you validating the price? What is new information to a customer that you can present them from a VDP, and what is not? For the most part, pictures, images, videos are all new information to that customer of a unique piece of inventory, whereas just as you can see, a VIN explosion of the same features and standard options over and over, those don't have a value to customers. So what on a VDP should be measured and what shouldn't?
Very well put. And to contrast that subpar VDP, we're going to kick back over to that same dealer example that we showed 2 slides ago. As you move on and you look in the VDP on this site, we can again see the clean layout with the overviews of the features right next to the photos, and this time the primary call to action has been elevated to the very top of the page, which is the check availability. This dealer has determined that their check availability button has been working best for them in terms of conversion, and that's the primary lead metric that they want to highlight. So they put it right up to the top where you're clear and where it's clear to see and easy to use. I have to also give some love to the CarStory market reports below the images that show the features of the vehicle relative to similar vehicles in that market area. Again, the live chat window is contrasted against the white background and again not floating to potentially obstruct desired conversion actions. So I think this is a great layout for a VDP and a very easy to use and intuitive user experience once they land on this vehicle details page.
Great. So again, yeah, that was understanding the click path of your customers on your websites. Google Analytics will give you insights into that, and we'll show you that in a moment. And the next step to the next stage, if you will, to understanding your digital spend is just understanding the current lead conversion environment. A lot of people believe that websites are meant to funnel you leads, and that is not the case. You can give you one. That is not the case. As you can see from the newest data, that this is total lead conversion in the industry. Total lead conversion is down quite a bit. We're seeing a significant lead volume dip in 2016, and it's actually been dwindling down a couple years now. But if you look at the next slide, and I'm sure you'll be able to touch on both, Omeed. If you look at the next slide, you will see that by and large, there's a lot more engagement happening more than ever before on your own dealership website, and that is what's going to play the most important role into the fortunes of your store.
Yes, and that's very well put. I think that the main thing that I wanted to compare and contrast with these 2 graphics is when you look at total lead conversion across third-party sites, marketplaces, and the like, where there is no redirect to the dealer's own experience, where the dealer themselves controls that user experience, that is declining. And then that's clearly shown that over the last 30 months, that trend is in line with other e-commerce lead trends, that total conversion is just on that downward trend. But when you get them to your site and you get those eyeballs onto your site and you make a clean experience, one that has very clear call to actions, you can actually convert at a higher rate. And that is on the uptick. So takeaway is corral those eyeballs to your site, optimize your site, and constantly be fostering a good user experience so that you're enticing those users to actually do what you want them to do.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much. So far, we're doing great. We already got a couple questions in from the audience. Thank you so much. If you have a question to come in for Joe or Omeed, send them on in. We'll hold them till the end, of course. But right now, we are going to launch our first of 2 poll questions today. The question is on your screen now. We'd love it if you take part in our questions. And here it is. How much money does your dealership currently spend every month overall on digital advertising? We want to know. Please select one of the following answers. Is it less than $15,000 per month? Somewhere between $15,000 and $30,000 per month? Between $30,000 and $60,000 per month? Or are you one of those dealerships who spends over $60,000 per month? Or is the last answer correct? It depends on my boss's mood. Hey, I know what that's like. All right, so we want to know how much money does your dealership spend every month overall on digital advertising. Once we get a majority of the votes in, we'll close this poll and share the results.
And when you think about digital advertising, it's not just PPC, it's not just towards your SEO, it's not just towards your website, it's for the reviews, it's for any leads that you attempt to generate through inventory distribution and the marketplaces. There's countless things that people are spending digital money on, and I know as the OEMs thankfully have seen a trend. I think they said that 2016 might be the first official year where digital as a spend will overtake traditional, if I heard that correctly recently.
Wow, okay. Votes are still coming in, and it's okay if you messed up your vote. You'll get it right next time, won't you? Lesson learned. But for right now, we're going to collect some more votes, and then we'll close this poll in just a moment. How much money does your dealership spend every month overall on digital advertising? Let's find out what the audience had to say. Gentlemen, if you're ready, I'll close this poll.
Yes.
Okay. Here we go. 34% of today's audience say that their dealership, I should say, spends less than $15,000 per month overall on digital advertising. That's a pretty big cross-section. It's more than a third. But the majority, 45% of today's audience, said that they're somewhere between $15,000 and $30,000 per month. 16% of today's audience say they're between $30,000 and $60,000 per month. Only 3% of today's audience said that they are spending over $60,000 per month. And yeah, that last 3%, it's whichever way the wind is blowing that day or however the boss is feeling. So, gentlemen, does that help you out? Is that what you've seen? Is there a right or wrong answer on how much you should be spending on digital advertising?
I'll turn it over to Omeed, but I'd say it would fluctuate by dealership and by region. Every single dealership is unique and different. It's more about what you're generating off of digital and then making sure your spend matches that at least, rather than dedicating, if you're generating 50 to 60% of all of your traffic and all of your appointments and all of your leads and sales from digital sources, and yet you only have 15% of your spend going towards digital. Therein lies, that's where we get to identify a problem with the marketing spend.
Totally agree. The caveman came to play today.
All right, let's keep moving on, fellas. Thank you.
I'm literally operating on nothing more but methamphetamines inhalation from the company last night.
Stop. Say no to drugs, kids. All right, where are we going now?
So I think step 3, and this sounds a little basic, but it's understanding your goals to an extent. And when I say goals, the goal of your website. What is the goal of your website? For some, you might say, hey, it's education and awareness. For some, you might say, hey, I want to make sure people have the ability to schedule service or find directions or see our contact information. In the end, I believe, for most of us on this call, that the goal of your website is reviewing, nay, finding preferred inventory of the dealership. As a consumer, when someone arrives on your site, when a consumer arrives on your site, what's the likelihood they look at a vehicle? You should have that data because you will understand their click paths. And if a customer doesn't see the car they want, they look elsewhere. And we leave our cavemen in the showroom floor scratching sticks together until we sort of develop ways to track our spend that ensure they're seeing our inventory. So what can you do with your spend to ensure that they're actually finding a way to see your exact vehicle? Because without that, you can't calculate what dollars go where and what dollars are making your website visitors see your cars after all. Omeed. Oh, you don't want to add to that? Okay, that's sweet. Yeah, I can do it. But one problem with with websites, I should say problem, because third-party tools can really work and benefit a dealership's website. But when you go into Google Analytics and then you look into your CRM and you look at you understand your conversion metrics, you might say, hey, listen, you know, we had 10,000 people visit and we had 100 leads. That is a 1% conversion ratio, and I know that the average conversion ratio is somewhere just over 2% in the industry. And then you, unfortunately, negatively have, or I should say have a negative understanding of what your website provider is doing for you. Far too often, these, you know, these tools and plugins that we use are sort of taking credit for some of the leads that we're generating off of our websites. And you know, everything from trade evaluator tools to credit approval plugins to live chat pop-ups and click-to-text peek-ins, you know, all of those things are generating leads, and the third-party vendors now must be considered part of your greater website spend collective, if that makes sense. So, you know, if you're spending, you know, X on your website and you're spending Y and Z on third-party tools, and all of them deliver you website, or all of them deliver you leads, all of those must be considered in your conversion metrics. Do you agree, Omeed?
Totally agree, and I think the biggest concern that we have been hearing from dealers is how everything is not aggregated, and Google Analytics, I can't just have a one-stop for showing all of my conversions across all of these plug-and-play third-party tools. So taking a step back, third-party tools like your trade-in evaluators, credit approvals, live chats, and so on, they're great for their ease of use and their plug-and-play ability, but you kind of go down the path of, you know, more is always more. And it's when it's easy to plug in, you're just going to be very inclined to keep plugging in stuff. But Google is constantly trying to figure out more ways to incorporate those tools and their actions and their subsequent conversions in your Google Analytics. One of the first things you should ask when evaluating a potential third-party tool is if they have conversion pixels that can be easily added to Google Analytics, either through customizable metrics view or the tag manager. The tag manager that I want to call out is Google's attempt to allow users to customize and normalize the additional bells and whistles you might want to add to your website. Additionally, Google provides an amazing free solution called Page Analytics that will give you basically heat mapping and click analysis and conversion paths of the buttons on your site in real time. So after installing that, you just go to your website and you'll be able to see real-time users and conversions through the page you're looking at. And I cannot underscore the value and ease of use of that Page Analytics tool. I think it's one of the best and simplest things you should be looking at on a constant basis.
Yes, and I definitely try to work with those third-party tools that allow you some level of flexibility as to maybe where it goes or what the colors are, or maybe what the verbiage is in their call to actions, unless they can provide you data that proves through A/B testing what has worked best for them. Step 5 to sort of understanding and measuring spend in Google Analytics is really understanding what metrics are tried and true that we've always looked at, that are right there on the dashboard when you open up Google Analytics, and which ones are no longer important. Because as we've seen, search engine marketing, for instance, the different strategies in the past, you would pay money to Google AdWords, you'd pay money to your SEM provider, and no matter where you generated that traffic from, whether it's display, whatever, it would take people to the homepage of the website. But SEM providers such as DealerOn, and DealerOn does a really great job of this, is able to drive people farther down the funnel into interior sites. And in my opinion, and in Omeed's opinion, and you can hear from listening to Omeed that he's the smart one here, it has made some of these previous metrics not as important. important. So, Omeed, if I can, what are some of the metrics that people have always looked at inside of Google Analytics that, based on digital spend and based on marketing strategies, have changed as to how important they are?
Yeah, definitely. So I think we're all familiar with this view. This is the standard Google dashboard that once you sign on to GA and look at the channels of your acquisition, it gives you the high-level overview of where you're at with your sessions, your bounce rate, conversions, and so on. While this is fine for the general pulse of your website, some additional digging is definitely beneficial to really understanding your traffic. One thing in particular that I see a lot of people focus on is just the total number of sessions that each channel brings in. That's important when you're first starting out, but as you grow and have been around for a while, ensuring that your users are actually seeing what you want them to see and merchandising that inventory applicably is what needs to be the primary objective. Let's say you're investing in SEO and you see 10% monthly gains on your overall traffic. That's great, but when you peel it back, you got to figure out if it's just getting people to your homepage, like Joe was saying, and if they're just falling out and never seeing the actual inventory you want to merchandise. If traffic goes up, you want that conversion to at least stay flat. Otherwise, the added expense of getting traffic isn't really paying off. One of the easy things I like to look at is the number of sessions going to actual VDPs. This can be quickly determined by just entering the beginning part of your URL string or the inventory in the search bar circled. If you have 100 sessions coming in from organic search and 50 coming in from paid, you would assume that your organic search is just flat out better. But what if those 100 sessions coming in organically only result in 30 vehicle page views, whereas the 40 for paid come in and have 40 paid results in the vehicle detail page views? That implies a 30% conversion view rate from organic, whereas the paid has an 80% conversion view rate for the inventory. It's kind of just peeling back and getting a little bit deeper before you just make passing glances of your Google Analytics high-level dashboards.
Yeah, so bounce rate is something that I think we've all, over the course of the last, 15 years or so, or a decade, I should say, we used to attribute that the lower the bounce rate, the better the site is performing. But that, I believe, is no longer the case, because when bounce rate increases, we think that something is broken. And yet, if your spend is focused on a more targeted traffic path, then a higher bounce rate could actually mean more conversions, more engagements, and that you're taking the customer to the right page without sending them hunting and digging for what they're looking for. Agreed, Omeed?
Totally agree. So it's important to get people to your site. We will never argue that point. And once you look at that, you see the different channels enable different user experience. So to Joe's point, depending on what type of campaign you're coming in on, the bounce rate can be drastically different from one to the next. So if their starting point is an action you want them to take, whether it be a VEP or a trading calculator page or a financing section, the bounce rate of that subsequent user will probably be very high because you're landing them directly on the converting page that you want them to act upon, whereas they're not digging for it and spending more time on the site. So bounce rate is one of those metrics that fall under that umbrella of maybe you need to rethink your hardline stances on lower is always better.
Huh. I would have never thought that. I thought everyone checked out their bounce rates.
Yeah, no, and that's hey, listen, that is why I'm the caveman, and people like Omeed educate me as the calculator. And the same, sort of the same applies to pages per session. Correct me if I'm wrong, Omeed. We want customers on our site all day, every day, reviewing as many pages as possible because it means they're engaged with us. But is this metric still relevant based on customers' current, search histories?
I think it's a yes and no, and it definitely goes hand in hand with the bounce rate explanation. The same logic applies as you work to corral your traffic to how you want them to interact with your site from the moment they get there. You should be willing to be a little bit more flexible in your evaluation of bounce rate and pages per session. If you're landing them on a great user experience right away where they can convert and they don't have to actually go and dig for stuff, then your pages per session is going to be lower and your bounce rate is going to be higher, which is diametrically opposed to the historic way of thinking that those metrics should kind of be the inverse. So be a little bit more flexible in how you're evaluating channel by channel spend and acquisition because not all of these metrics are universally true channel by channel. The lower the bounce rate doesn't necessarily mean the higher the conversion and so on.
So another metric that Google Analytics is checked for, if you will, is just the basic visitors new versus returning. Is there any value, like, Omeed, you're Director of Growth Analytics, is there any value in looking at the difference between a new customer or a returning visitor to your website? Is there any data that one is financially more valuable than the other?
Here's the thing about new versus returning users. There isn't a set answer for which you should value more 100% of the time. What's important to note is achieving balance and seeing what group of users is actually providing more value to you in terms of conversions. If you notice that your new visitors, for instance, are converting at a higher rate, you should be investing in the channels that bring you higher percentage of new users. However, if you see that your returning visitors are converting higher, then that probably means your retargeting campaigns are working very well and you can reallocate some of your spend to channels with more cost-effective channels for bringing in returning users. So this is one of those that I definitely like to keep a very close eye on to measure constantly to see, as those ratios are maybe, flipping one to the next, be willing to reallocate your spend accordingly to whether it's new user acquisition or retargeting campaigns.
So, and before you jump off this slide, let me just ask you, Omeed, and this is off the top of my head, I've long tried to say to the industry that something that I see broken in automotive is that the majority of automotive dealerships dedicate 90% of their budget to conquest customers and new customers and 10% to retention, and a brilliant organization might be able to find a way to flip that and dedicate 90% to retaining the customers, 10% to conquest, and they will be a more profitable and valuable organization at the end of the day because of it. With that said, how when it says a conversion goal, I imagine a conversion goal on a new visitor to a site might be a form field submission, something like that, and a returning visitor might be a form field submission, but one is for the purchase of an $18,000 car, one is for an $18 oil change. Is there any truth there that it might be financially more valuable to focus on the click path of a new visitor than a returning customer on your website, or am I wrong?
I think you're half right. You definitely want
to. It's like I'm with my wife.
He seems so excited about being half right.
I know I'm right, but she's going to tell me now how I'm completely wrong.
So definitely, I think the overarching theme of this entire presentation is the value of being able to roll up your sleeves and get into the weeds a little bit. Understanding, at first glance you see a 1% conversion rate versus a 0.84 conversion rate. So on those 10,000 users or so, that's equating to a set number of dollars in your example. So actually doing the deep dive and going into the returning visitors to seeing what the actual conversion events that they're clicking on and seeing the ROI by channel is definitely very, very paramount in achieving this balance in your marketing spend. Retargeting has made a lot of people a lot of money, especially the companies that introduced it about 5 years ago. I don't think I will ever be in a situation where I'm telling people that retargeting isn't something that they should be doing, at least in the background. But like with most good marketing campaigns, you should be willing to dial up and dial down things as you see certain trends work in your favor or against you.
Great. So, a poll question. Sorry.
Poll question it is. All right, audience. Your second and final poll question is on the screen now. This is a fun one. First of all, I didn't realize that CarStory got so deep into the data, but they did. And so for this, we want to know what you think. According to recent data, like within the last year, from CarStory, what do you think is the most sought after feature that consumers look for on used cars or pre-owned cars. What do you think it is? Do you think people are looking for navigation or GPS? Do you think it's the leather heated seats that gets them going? Is it the moonroof or the sunroof that they're searching for? Maybe possibly an MP3? Or is it Bluetooth that consumers really want to see in their new used car? All right, we want to know, according to recent data from CarStory, what do you think is the most sought after feature consumers look for on used cars? So while we're waiting for those votes to come in, we are going to no, it's not back massagers, Bill. But I'll tell you what, we're also looking for questions from you, our audience. I know a lot of you are tweeting out there. Thank you so much for all the tweets. That's awesome. But if you have any questions for today's presenters, Joe Webb and Omeed Kazemi, hey, get them in. We will get you answers from both the Caveman and the calculator. And I'm sure one of them is correct, right, Joe?
Yes. So, and one of the reasons we asked this poll question is, CarStory really dedicates a lot of time to acquiring data about how customers engage with dealership inventory, like actually engage with it. What is important to them? What really are the things that generate the most conversions when they're taking a glance at a piece of your inventory? And that is the goal. So the question is, whatever the answer is here, how are you highlighting it in your merchandising? How are you highlighting it in your photos, in your videos, in your unique vehicle description? Are you bringing the things that are most important to your customers to the forefront of your merchandising? Because at the end of the day, the best advertisement you can have for your entire dealership is each single piece of inventory you have, because that's what most customers are looking for from you, is your vehicle, is to find the right vehicle for them. And the way you advertise it is going to be the way, and the way you highlight the things most important to customers is going to be the way that you attract them to your store.
Speaking of that, I'm going to close this poll and share the results. And the majority of our audience thinks that they know the answer to this. So we're going to see if they're right, okay? So let's close this poll and share the results. Okay, here we go. And I assume, Omeed, you know the answer to this, right? Okay, here we go. 20% of today's audience say they think consumers are looking for navigation or GPS. 11% of today's audience believe it's leather heated seats. Only 2% of today's audience think it's the moonroof or sunroof. Another 2% of today's audience believe it's MP3 players, but the majority overall, huge majority, 64% of today's audience believe Bluetooth is the correct answer. So, Omeed, Joe, according to that data from CarStory, what is the most sought after feature that consumers look for on a used car?
I will quote Donald Trump when I say wrong.
Has nothing to do with China. What is it? Wait, so it's not Bluetooth.
The number one sought after feature, sorry about that. It is my parole officer. The number one used car feature that is sought after is MP3 capability.
What?
Is number one.
No.
Yes. And Bluetooth is number two.
Bluetooth is number two. Wow, it's MP3.
And all this data was put out. It shows how well researched you are. All of this data was put out in a great used car auto shopping study that CarStory released, I believe, in November of last year, and it really details the things most important to them. Obviously, hands-free, based on the law, you're absolutely right. Bluetooth is the second most important thing, and people love speaking on the phone, but more they like listening to their own music, listening to their own devices, which makes MP3 a bit of a necessity in a lot of late model vehicles.
Now, for instance, David wrote and he says, I knew it. He must have been like one of the two people who voted that it was MP3. He says, I've been highlighting MP3 in my comments for about a year now.
Wow.
But he said, then again, I saw the report, which leads me to my question from Carly, who I'm sure is not the only one who's thinking this. Where can I get a copy of that study that Omeed and Joe are referencing regarding used car shopping behaviors? And to be honest with you, I think that would be a great webinar topic if you have a recent and even more recent study coming out on that, because I think that would be really interesting to our audience. So I'm just going to say that.
I can definitely go and check with marketing. I think it's on the CarStory blog. under one of our studies. But I will check and be sure to send it over to Eliana so she can put it on the handouts or the additional resources.
And Bill, if my partner Bill Playford's listening as well, if you can like hunt that down and just share with Eliana, I'm sure she could drop it in the chat box that we could look at as well.
I would love that. Yes, Bill, if you could do that, please send it over at your earliest convenience. And we're back to you guys. Where do we go from here?
Great. So the next step is what we say optimizing ad spends, which is where you spend your money and how you look at what your money is, which a lot of this is some of the bread and butter. The first thing I want to say, and at Topgolf, Greg Gifford went off on a bit of a diatribe the same way I usually do about SEO providers. So he adamantly believes that dealerships should invest an entire person internally who's well-read and focused on improving your SEO because it is an ongoing initiative. Or you hire somebody. Herein lies the problem, is how you should trust your SEO provider, because at the end of the day, if you're spending $500, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 a month on an SEO provider and do not know how to measure the return, therein lies the problem. Some of the things that I see, and I'm going to go off on a bit of a rant here. You know, we've seen, I train and consult for dealers everywhere. We've seen the worst of the worst behavior from different SEO providers. And we've seen an SEO provider charging a dealer $2,000 a month who does nothing more than reads them back their Google Analytics at the end of every month, shows them their own analytics, charges them $2,000, and the SEO provider didn't even have their own website. It's like asking somebody to make you a tailored suit that's never worn clothes before. It makes no sense whatsoever. We've also seen people who spend $1,500 on a very popular SEO provider and sees a really small, 5 to 7% lift in inbound link traffic, and maybe they build a couple pieces of content for them every single month, but it does nothing. They get a small lift and then it plateaus. Let me tell you, if you are paying for SEO month in, month out, all of that work should constantly compound. All of your traffic and your visitor traffic and your links should compound. Those things need to be constantly added to your site, and if you just work with a provider who runs your own analytics through their own godforsaken tool or reporting, and they just send you back a report every month, but doesn't show correlation or causation that they did any work, then you are overpaying and you should eliminate them immediately. If you work with an SEO provider, you should be asking where your links are coming from. You should be asking what content they've created for you. You should be asking what title tags and H1 tags they have changed, what alt images they've added into your blogs. You need to ask those questions, because if they can't prove documented instances where they have made changes that are affecting the behavior of your visitor counts, then they're not doing anything for you.
Sugar?
Correct. They're not doing anything for you. So really start to look microscopically at what your SEO provider is doing from a service and work standpoint, because it can't just be about reading you your Google Analytics and taking credit for what may just be, nature's course. So I'm sorry I went off on a bit of a thing here. And let me just, so where else do dealers spend their money? Automotive marketplaces. Dealers spend their money on, the big two, and a couple of the others recently, without naming names. But I will say, the more I've been able to read research from CarStory. CarStory's long powered some of the top automotive marketplaces, as they're nothing more than the inventory engine, if you will, of these marketplaces. And they even, if I'm not mistaken, launched their own marketplace. But these large marketplaces often charge subscriptions to host your inventory. And they used to just hope that leads or now VDP views are generated. However, how can a dealer, and I'll ask Omeed this, how can a dealer determine if the traffic on a marketplace or from a marketplace is worth the dollar amount inside, from looking inside their own Google Analytics?
Definitely. So paid search in general can get expensive if you're in one of those regions where certain AdWords are getting bid up. Subscription services that Joe is alluding to may or may not be actually driving leads and sales and can also get very expensive. The marketplace is effective at delivering in-market low-funnel shoppers, and one of the benefits of powering these sites listed on this slide is we've been able to piggyback on them and really basically tailor an experience that are for auto search and discovery and deliver users directly to VDP, so you can tag and retarget them as you wish at a low cost relative to the other players in this field. So measuring, though, is the theme of this presentation is GA, and our goal for delivering this type of traffic to you is to tag it in a way where it's very streamlined and it shows up as XYZ publisher site is bringing you these many users at this cost. Going into your referral section of your acquisition in your GA will very cleanly denote what the ROI is based on what channel your users are actually coming from.
So in other words, you're saying to understand how customers are interacting with your website, you look at sort of the behavior goals to understand how customers are finding you and what marketplaces they may have visited before you. You're setting up your conversion goals, correct?
Exactly.
So, I mean, and because they're like, I think like a caveman, and I say, okay, I'm a customer. I'm on a big automotive inventory site. I'm looking for 8-year-old Camrys, and I see 1,000 of them, and some are featured and some aren't, and I select one after looking at 7 or 8 that I actually really like, and instead of submitting a lead form, because lead forms are seriously going away from third-party sites as we showed before, instead of submitting there, I take it down to the dealer site, and I click the button to see the vehicle on the dealer site, and where does it take me? From most automotive, not from CarStory, but from most automotive sites, where does it take me? It takes me to the dealer's homepage, and they have to then start all over hunting down and finding that damn car that they just found before, and it's sort of making them go through previous steps which are redundant. So, I mean, that's one thing I think CarStory does well is, once they find the vehicle on the SERP on CarStory, it takes them right down to the VDP on the dealer's page, which I think is great. But I think automotive marketplaces need to rethink the customer click path and how we're funneling people down to the dealership website, because otherwise we're making people start over, and a regular website visit from one of those, while it might have a high authority, if you will, or a high quality link, it's not doing anything for the customer. And moving on to paid search, if you can just explain to me and explain to them a little bit about deep links. I mentioned, DealerOn does a really great job of not just sending people to the homepage with their SEM, but being able to target through unique keywords, sales, and sending people to the SERP, and sending people to the service scheduling page, and interior pages, and more, and they do it through AdWords, and through display, and through retargeting.
Yep.
So explain to me sort of the difference between traditional paid search and deep linking.
Yeah, to your earlier point on the previous slide, different types of acquisition channels that fall under the paid search umbrella basically land users at different parts of the website. And whereas the deep link will say, take any third-party site, and if you see a vehicle on that third-party site's SRP, once you click it, you basically bypass the entire third-party site and get the user lands on that VDP on the dealer site. The overarching, the point that I wanted to hammer home was only good things can happen once you get users to your site, and once you start getting them directly to see your inventory. So if you recall from earlier in the presentation where we talked about actual VDP views, the important takeaway from that was getting people to perform actions on VDPs. And in order to perform actions on VDPs, you actually have to get them to the actual VDP. Certain SEM acquisition paths are kind of all over the place, like we've already said, and I wanted to highlight the difference between other, average paid search and the value of a deep link. So that if you're paying $3 per user per user acquired from paid search, and only 30% of those are landing to a, are only making it to a VDP, then really you are effectively paying $10 for that VDP view. Comparing that to deep link strategies, which are pay per performance and ensure VDP views without having the user start over, like you were saying, you can see there is both a cost efficiency and traffic maximization aspect to take into account. You want to be constantly moving your spend around to maximize the attempts at converting your users that are coming to your site.
So if you have a well-performing VDP, obviously, because you don't want to take somebody down to a hot bag of garbage, but if you have a well-performing VDP, if it costs you less, and if you can optimize the click path for the customer on your website down to a VDP, down to a well-constructed VDP for less money, the more leads, traffic, and inevitably sales you will have. So start finding a way, start looking into Google Analytics to track these, how the website engages its visitors and how many people are landing on your VDPs and what can you do to optimize and drag more people down to your VDP and your website, or from your advertising spend, how do I get them from out into the interwebs down to my VDP in the quickest path possible?
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. And then sort of step 7, the last one is repeat, if you will. So I think everybody now on this call, you're smart, you're listening to DealerOn webinars, you have Google Analytics set up. You jump in, I know many of you do have conversion goals set up, and many of you don't. But the things you need to start doing basically are, put yourself in your customer's shoes no matter what, and take a walk through your own website and see how many clicks it takes you to get where, and then side by side, preferably on a second monitor, in Google Analytics, start building out those goals to see what can I track, how can I best track customers on my site and what it takes to get them funneled down quickly. You understand the environment, so if your goal is to spend a piss load of money on getting a ton of leads out there from third-party sites, you're going to be throwing good money after bad because it's getting harder to get leads from off your website. So you need to understand what your goals are, what third-party plugins are available to you, and then, moreover, and I've got to say this, no offense, like, short of unlimited data, you can push your website to recreate their own versions of some of these third-party plugins. I write endlessly, and I write blogs endlessly, and I wrote a blog not too long ago that says, let me show you what I can put on your website. And if you visit the exhibit halls nowadays, and anybody who's been to any conferences, the digital dealers and driving sales of the world, most people just say, I want access to the dealer site because that's where the quality traffic is. What can I build for the dealer sites? One day, the DealerOns of the world and the other website providers of the world will offer their own version of almost every single plugin, unless there's instances where they have so much data, these third-party plugins have so much data that the website provider couldn't simulate its own version. But recognize that every store is different. All of your customers have slightly different click paths, but it's not hard to build them out. Omeed is a master at this, so I asked him not to drill down into anybody's live Google Analytics on the call because we don't know what hornet's nest we're going to get into as to whether or not they build out things right or wrong. But definitely invest the time. 4 to 6 hours, you can get yourself Google Analytics certified, if I'm not mistaken. Correct, Omeed?
Correct.
And understand that every channel you have has a different goal. A goal from a customer from a marketplace for you is probably different than a goal from a customer from paid search. That goal is a VDP view, but there's different values associated with each, and you need to measure them accordingly.
I also wanted to add one more point. Well, 2 more points, actually. There are countless resources in how to get better at this type of stuff, and it's really just a matter of sitting down and just looking. And I think that we've listed a couple of sites that I go to regularly. But there's a ton of resources out there. I didn't think that I was going to come and be the end-all be-all presentation on how to measure this stuff. That like the point of this is to actually just keep going, keep digging, and actually like figuring out what you want to do. The other point, take an example of whatever e-commerce site, digital experience you all actually visit on a regular basis, whether it's a clothing retailer online, Amazon.com, whatever the case may be, and just kind of like look at how they've set up their conversion goals and look at how they've basically put together the user experience for their site, because all of those retailers online are trying to maximize conversions, whether it be buying a $10 shirt or a $50 video game, whatever it is. They want people to actually act on their site, and they've made it very, very, very direct and easy to use. So just as a little bit of homework, go to your favorite online retailer and just kind of dig around and see, you might get some ideas on how to maximize your own auto site just by looking around elsewhere.
Yeah, and just one last thing that I shouldn't even have to touch on. It's sort of a dark cloud hanging over our industry. If your OEM provider or your SCM provider are withholding the ability for you to look at your own Google Analytics or to build out and construct your own goals in Google Analytics, then you need to fight tooth and nail to get control of that, or maybe your website provider, because there's no good what's the word I'm looking for?
Explanation.
Reason. There's no good moral reason why a company should withhold your own Google Analytics from you. If they're withholding it from you, they're likely up to no good, or they don't know what the hell you're doing or they're doing, and they don't want you to find out about it. So just start putting the pressure on these companies, because your Google Analytics to your website are yours. You can get a trusted advisor to build out your goals for you and to show you how to measure it, but damn it, they're yours, and nobody else should have full, unlimited access without you.
Preach.
Testify. I show you the best Google Analytics you done ever good to see in your life. That's for Bill Paper right there. That's
Okay.
So why don't you go over the action items, Omeed?
Yeah, so takeaways, definitely go sit down with your marketing director and just kind of see what the current state of affairs is within GA. As Joe said, see if you're tracking goals at all, and which one of those goals actually matter to you and you need to kind of revisit and reposition if need be. Set up the dashboards for easier reference in the future, because the last bullet point, I think that repetition is key here, and constantly monitoring and measuring over and over again, really getting the most bang for your buck and increasing ROI in your digital spend is paramount for success in this game now. Just taking those into account and really like setting up a time with your marketing director on a weekly basis to get a rundown of what's going and what's happening on your GA is definitely a great, great thing to have. And then these are, so I mentioned these earlier, there are some of these resources that I go to constantly. Kissmetrics is an awesome blog that has general analytic trends, and they have a great search for the repository of their blog that are blog entries that really do deep dives and how-tos on how to set up stuff, what to measure, what not to measure, things to think about. I think it's just a great blog to just kind of keep a pulse on what's going on in the analytic trends. There's a couple of articles below that is overview of basic GA principles in case you're just wanting to dip your toe in the water. And then that last link is for a little bit more advanced tracking, how to optimize your funnel, conversion tracking and visualization, setting up dashboards, and kind of how to measure things later on down the road once you have everything set up.
And with that, Eliana asked us to show our mugs.
Yes, I did. Guys, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. Joe, where are you? You better be turning that cell phone of yours on silent.
No, it is on silent. The problem is it through iCloud or whatever it is connected to my phone, so it keeps keeps calling. And whether it's my parole officer or my drug dealer, they really need to get a hold of me.
Just say no, kids. All right. For all of you who have been looking at your question feature and also the chat feature, I sent you 2 different links to get to that report from CarStory, and I also downloaded it while we were doing all this live stuff, and I stuck it in the handout section. So the bit.ly link will take you directly to that one page where you can check out the most popular features for used car consumers, and the other one will take you to the entire thing that you can download, or you can just download it directly from the handout section. That's right. Go to that handout section.
Don't get mad, but I don't think Bill sent you the right one.
What?
Yeah. Don't worry, he didn't send you the right one.
Why would he send me the wrong one?
Yes, I know. It's okay. It's called, we can get it out there, used car shop.
All right, send me the right one and I'll send that. Anyway, what you'll also see in the handout section is the slide deck that Omeed and Joe put together for today. So download that if you'd like, and we're going to get you that other one. But real quick, check out those links that we sent out, and next time we'll try and be better prepared. We have a ton of great questions from you, but before we get to those questions, we got some fun stuff. Now, Joe, I don't know, are you going to pump out the game show music?
I am going to send this over to you right now. Here's a link, Eliana. Let me just drop in the chat box.
Okay.
And this link on there has another link where to download that report.
This link is going to take me to another link?
No, well, no. In that link, it shares a lot of the data, but then you can download the full white paper on that page.
All right. I'll tell you what. I'm going to put
You know I do you right.
I'm going to put it in the chat feature for everyone else to have. How's that? Entire audience. All right, peoples. There's a link for you right there, all right? Bill's still making excuses for us over here. Send to all. Okay, I sent you, everyone, I sent that link out to you. So now let's go to the giveaway question, all right? We'll get this all worked out eventually. Thank you so much, Joe, for finding that out for me. Okay, if you missed it at the beginning of the webinar, I announced that our good friends over at CarStory, they don't just put out awesome information. Guess what? They give out cool prizes, too. That's right. Today we're giving away an Amazon gift card worth $100. That's right. So if you want to get in on this, you have to not be a vendor and get to your keyboards and get ready, everyone, okay? But for you vendors out there, we do appreciate you coming to the DealerOn webinar, but this prize is intended for dealership personnel only, so we're going to ask you to kindly sit this one out and let a dealership personnel try and win this one. All right, $100 Amazon gift card up for grabs. Good luck, everyone. It's a great question. I hope you guys are paying attention. Excluding the photos of Caveman Joe Webb, how many images of Caveman were there in today's slide deck? And yes, you can guess, and you can guess repeatedly. Oh, we have somebody who got the right answer. Carly Painter. We had a lot of different answers, but she was the only one who guessed correctly. Carly Painter with the correct answer of 12 cavemen in today's presentation. Congratulations, Carly Painter. Thank you, Carly Painter, for having a name I could absolutely read and understand and not have to worry about whether or not I was saying it incorrectly. Carly, you are a winner today. You will be hearing from our good friends over at CarStory about collecting your Amazon $100 gift card from them. So congratulations. Thank you, everyone, for playing along. It's okay. You didn't win. I know we had one prize, and not all of you can win. But you know what? We give away cool prizes every week, so come on back to another DealerOn webinar, and that could be your lucky day to win a cool prize on the DealerOn webinar. But for right now, we're going to congratulate Carly Painter on her win. Carly, what dealership are you from? No, Brad, it wasn't 11. It was 12. She is from Kenny Ross. I don't know what they sell, but they sell cars probably. So congratulations, Carly, and we got to thank our good friends over at CarStory. She says everything. Thank our good friends over at CarStory for a very cool giveaway today. So thank you so much. All right.
Kenny Ross, we are a veterinarian clinic and a taxidermy No, bad mix.
They sell some kind of cars. All right, here we go. Let's get to some of those questions. Are you ready, gentlemen?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Omeed, if you wouldn't mind going forward a couple slides, that would be wonderful. And your first question, ironically, comes from today's winner, Carly Painter. That's right. She says, is there any data that says which car image is best received by customers on a vehicle display page? Whether, I mean, should it be the front shot, the side shot, the rear looking shot? Do we have data on that, Omeed? I know you said you collect data on everything.
Yes, we collect data on everything, and what we found is the highest conversions happen when the first image is of the car pointing towards the call to action button.
So traditionally on most dealership websites it would be considered the passenger side 3/4. If for some reason you have a layout of your VDP where the images are flush right opposed to flush left, then you'd want it pointing inward towards the words. But then again, if you are doing, understand, if you're doing advertising on inventory marketing sites, they all have, for the most part, left justified pictures. You'd want those pictures turning in right. There was some really good data from e-commerce director in Canada by the name of Josh Pogue from about 1.5 years ago, where he showed a good amount of VDP views and lead lifts by having his first picture be the, what we call the sort of the cockpit shot. So from the back seat into the front seat, dashboard, steering wheel, center console, and the display. I would always have that picture second, and I would have the passenger 3/4 picture first.
Okay, Carly wrote in, very interesting. Thank you very much. All right, let's see. Next question comes in from Tracy. She says, this is so eye-opening. The numbers definitely don't lie. Getting visitors to your site is your best chance of getting a conversion. The numbers don't lie, Omeed, right? Higher traffic?
No.
Higher traffic means you're going to hit more balls out of the park?
Yeah, you want more at bats. You definitely want more at bats. Keeping in theme with the World Series that just ended. Get the eyeballs to your site, and only good things can happen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're going to be hearing a little bit more from Tracy in a bit. Right now, let's get to the question from Brad. He says, why don't chat services use CDNs to speed up their delivery?
That is a great question. The CDNs have been, in my experience, a little bit more, I don't know what the right word for it is, timid in terms of pushing that type of service out. I think that they're trying to get it right the first time and really have a streamlined experience in terms of the chat, whereas right now it's a little clunky. So I think in the next 6 to 12 months that'll definitely be the case where they're getting more refined in that distribution and pushing that type of service out.
And I will add a more controversial answer.
What?
Because I don't know shit about what CDNs are. I'm the caveman. But what I will say is the majority of chat companies in automotive are nothing more than white-labeled, moved around versions of a French software for chat, and very few of them have any of their own software regardless of what they tell you. So if that company is not pushing CDNs, if you will, then more than likely the companies that are doing nothing but putting lipstick on somebody else's software, probably not going to be a big concern for them.
Interesting. Okay, I know, right? Damn. Follow-up question comes in from Julie. She says, is there a chat provider you would recommend using or not using in reference to other site conversions? Okay, really go out on a limb now, Joe Webb. You already stepped in it, so.
Well, no, hey, listen, there are a lot of chat companies that I think do a really good job. Absolutely. And much depends on if you want to handle it yourself, or if you want it managed, or if you want some give and take. I have seen, when it comes to third-party providers, because there are some website companies that actually have their own integrated live chat software, and I'd always tell you to just, if your website provider has it, use theirs. But with that said, I think those that do managed extremely well would be the Active Engage, Client Connection, Goobagoo, and CarChat24. I think they do live chat very well. I think from a third-party plugin standpoint, and still to this day, Contact At Once has they have really good software if you're going to manage it entirely internally.
Right.
And because of their partnerships with Cars.com and Auto Trader, it makes them worthwhile to at least know the software and know the capabilities of it.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, let's get on to some more questions. Oh, this isn't so much a question.
I can hurt feelings. I own my own business. I'm a consultant. Dealers pay me, vendors don't, and I take pride in that. So for that reason, I have no problem saying who I like. But they're very similar. A lot of them are very similar. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for your opinion. I appreciate it. I know a lot of people do. All right, great question, Brad. Next comes in from Tracy. Again, not so much a question, more like a point that you made. Setting a view in analytics specifically for conversion goals only is invaluable. Now, I do recall one of you, probably Joe, said that a lot of dealerships out there are setting goals. And a lot of them aren't.
A lot of dealerships sadly are not.
Right, they are, and then a lot of them aren't. Right. So
yeah.
Obviously, the lesson of the story is you think we should all be setting those conversion goals in Google Analytics. Why aren't more people doing it? Do you think it's just because they don't know how?
Omeed, do you have an answer? Because, yeah, I'd say A is just acumen, and B is they don't know where to start.
And how many do you think aren't doing it?
85% to 90%.
No. We should have done a poll question on that.
Omeed?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a little bit of just being a little shy in terms of, general marketing and like online space. People thinking, oh, well, I'm not a user experience guy, or I'm not a online guy. I'm more of like a offline person that does the billboards and the TV commercials and the radio ad. So I know that those are tried and true and work for me and so on. But Google, Google is Google for a reason, right? Like every year that passes, they get easier to use. They add more valuable tools for free across the board. And their main objective is to empower a person or a business owner or whoever it is to just utilize the stuff that they have. They have the brightest minds in the world out there in California churning out this stuff for you, and they're making it idiot-proof, right? So like, I am by no means as smart as Joe says I am, but I'm so happy that Google has made this tool super easy to use so that a person like me can like have a job. So definitely.
I don't know. You seem pretty sharp. I don't know about that.
Yeah, he used the word repository. Last time I used the repository, I got an infection back there.
What? Oh my God.
I'm here all week, folks.
The last thing I'll say is there's more videos than you have time for out there on how to A, set up stuff in Google Analytics, and B, what are the types of metrics and things you should be tracking. A very quick search, and starting with those resources that I listed in a couple slides ago, is that's going to get you 75 to 80% of the way there. It's that last 10 to 20% that is requires a little bit more horsepower thinking.
Okay. All right. We have a lot more questions to get to. So let's see how many we can power through. Tracy, thank you so much for your insight. We really appreciate it. Next question comes in from Jesse. Jesse says, about bounce rate. Shouldn't every page have a call to action? And if they interact, they meet a goal and negate an immediate page bounce, i.e. lease calculator, newsletter sub, image, video views. In what situation specifically is a high bounce rate a potential positive thing?
So in regards to bounce rate, when you look at the dashboard view in GA, it doesn't just go page by page, right? So it goes off of acquisition channel and it groups things for like users. So for users that are similar, that have come in off a similar path, or a different campaign. They group those together, and it basically shows you the trends within those user base. So I would never advocate looking like user by user, page by page, because then that's just going down the rabbit hole. Where high bounce rate is okay is when you see a certain campaign that you're running or a referral source or some sort of channel that's bringing in a subset of users that are converting on the page that you are actually bringing them to and then leaving. I'm more than happy, this is me in particular, I'm not speaking for everybody, I'm more than happy to have people convert and leave the site as opposed to, you know, look at 5, 6, 7 pages and then have not, like, they don't return, they don't do anything, they don't give you their details, there's no way for you to contact them except through retargeting. I think you can disregard a high bounce rate when you actually have a conversion that you can point to.
Okay. Jesse, if
but
you
I mean, with that said, yeah, I don't see why there wouldn't be some call to action on anything. You know, so, you know, a VDP can have, and don't clutter your VDP with like 14 call to actions. That's ridiculous. You know, pick the 2.
How many call to actions? Okay, 2? 2 is max?
I'm not, he's probably got data on this, but I do know that more call to actions, let's face it, when a customer walks into your showroom, I'm a car guy, I'm a caveman, customer walks into your showroom and they want a car and you show them 10 cars, you've done yourself a disservice. You show them 2 cars, you usually do yourself a favor because hopefully you've asked enough questions, you understand the customer journey enough at that point to know, to help select what is going to convert them right there. The more vehicles you show them, the fewer options. If you say to your kids, hey, here's 10 different places we're going to go for vacation, and you have 10 kids for some reason, I don't know, I don't. But if they'd all pick a different one. And if you give them only 2 choices, it's going to be easier for them to choose. So for that reason, less choices usually mean better conversion from what I've seen.
Yes, totally agree.
But I mean, with that said, if you go on your About Us, you know, if you have a history of your store, history of the family that owns your store, there should be a, opportunity to subscribe to a blog there. You know, it doesn't need to be check availability. It doesn't need to get a quote.
Right.
You know, every single page could have a different valuable call to action for them. And some of them could just be, it doesn't have to be a lead form submission or call us here. Some of those call to actions could be to take them to a different page, you know, internally linking them to a different page that might be valuable.
Okay, you done?
Jeez.
Okay. Jesse, thank you so much. Great question. I hope we answered it for you. And if you have a follow-up, send it on in. Pretty darn quick, okay? Next question comes in from Mike. Mike says, how important is UTM tagging moving forward?
Definitely very important. If you're getting more refined with your marketing campaigns and you're pushing things out through different SEM providers, you definitely want to have, I think it's one of the most streamlined ways to just very quickly aggregate that type of campaign, so you can have a UTM parameter tracked or added onto your referral URL, and then that campaign tracks independently. So it shows you what that specific thing is doing and what types of users that campaign is bringing in. So I think it's, as you get more refined and you're doing, especially in regards to testing, as you're testing out different campaigns and seeing where you should be allocating more dollars, the UTM's parameters at the end of URLs make it just a lot easier to slice and dice the data.
Okay, Mike, we hope that helps you out. A follow-up comment came in from David. He says, I use UTM tags on all of my Facebook ads to see easily in Google Analytics what vehicles people are going to. I love them. All right, there you go, people. So get out there and use those UTM tags. Okay, follow-up from the previous question from Jesse. He says, Joe, thanks for your response. Your addition to the answer was helpful and in line with what I was initially thinking. So there you go.
Yay, I love being validated. I'm an egotist.
All right. Well, then sit still because you're going to get validated a little bit more, you two. All right. AJ says, I am totally with Joe and Greg on what he said about spam email and Gmail addresses. Kate wrote in, hallelujah, good rant. That was when you ranted in the middle. Do you remember that? Do you remember your rant, Joe?
Yes.
Yes. Well, people liked your rant, actually. Kate wrote in, hallelujah, excellent rant, and this is coming from an SEO person now working exclusively for a dealership. And AJ wrote in, wow, this was really great information on this webinar, great stuff. And Lydia wrote in, I love what Joe and Omeed had to say. And AJ wrote in, I love what Joe said about it's not what we think the shopper wants. There you go. So we had a lot of people who had a lot of great comments about all of your presentation. I do want to put out there, Lydia wrote in, how do you recommend we access our own Google Analytics?
I mean, from a basic standpoint, I mean, first and foremost, hopefully your website provider already has them placed on your website. If they don't, shame on them. But I mean, if you just go to google.com/analytics, you can register with your own personal Gmail account, unless hopefully your dealer already has one set up and it's theirs and they own it. And if they can give you access to it, you can just go and very quickly, I forget what the tab is, but it'll give you the install code. You copy the code and you forward the code to your website provider and you say, put this on every single page of my website, and they should do it for you because that is what you're paying them to do. And it's simple as that. It's click of a couple buttons and send it out there, and then they put it on there for you. And then within a month or so, data will start showing up. Maybe faster.
Oh, I love that. All right. Thank you so much.
Omeed, am I good there?
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what I would do.
Okay, there you go. Thank you so much for that great answer, Lydia. We hope that helped you out. We just have just a few more questions to go through, and then we'll close out the show. This next one comes in from Jenna. She says, what would you say is a good average measurement number for determining if your paid search budget is allocating you enough VDP views?
Yeah, so I think midway through the presentation there was that view of the high-level dashboard, and if you go and click into the paid channel button, it'll show you all the traffic associated with paid channel. And so, for instance, if you have 100 sessions coming in through your paid channel, and then you input in that search parameter what the used inventory or what your inventory URL string looks like, it should filter out, okay, of the X number of sessions, I saw Y going to actual inventory.
Right.
So for all of my paid channel, this is the percent that are actually seeing cars. And you can actually set that up further down on the road once you get familiar with that in a dashboard view, so that all of that stuff is just at one click instead of you digging for it.
Okay, great. Jenna, we hope that helped you out. Last couple of questions here. This one comes in from Mike. He says, why does Google limit you to 20 conversion goals? If there are more than 20 important goals, is event tracking the workaround?
So Joe's earlier point, I'm from the less is more school of thought. So if you have more than 20, you probably don't need 20.
How many should we have?
Yeah. That is when you need to sit down with your marketing director and actually see what are the highest value conversion events and what actually get you the most return in terms of leads, appointments, calls, all of that stuff. Because I guarantee as you get down the list and you actually stack rank them, your 10th, 11th, 12th, so on, are just not going to be adding the same value that you think they are.
Interesting. Okay. So
you think 10 conversion goals, Omeed?
Oh, no, that was being generous. I think truly, like, you probably are in the 5 to 7 is what I usually go with. I think I saw one dealer, and I don't want to call them out, but they had 4 separate used VDP goals set up. So I think there's also just a general housekeeping thing that maybe you've duplicated certain goals that have gotten you past 20. So really just consolidating and measuring stuff so that they're all in the same bucket, if it's the same metric, really goes a long way.
okay. It's starting to make sense to me now. Okay, I get it. Mike, we hope that helped you out. If you have a follow-up question, you better hurry up and get it in, because we are right now about to go into our last question, which came in from Stephen. I don't know if it's a question. Oh, Mike says, helped a lot. Thank you both. All right, this one comes in from Stephen. He says, Most new car dealers have the same cookie cutter sites, and most used car dealers have the same low rent sites. How can either most effectively improve their performance within the limitations imposed on them, one assumes, by their websites?
That is a great question, and much is sort of on the OEMs to answer that, in my opinion, because I think in some cases they've done dealers a disservice because, listen, OEMs telling dealer website providers how they should build their websites is akin to website providers telling the OEMs how to build their damn cars. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
You're just dropping all kinds of bombs today.
Yeah, that's what I do. Hey, my Cubs won. My Cubs won. You can't take that away from me. I'm invincible.
I wouldn't even try. I wouldn't even try, babe.
No, I mean, with that said, why I'm button this. What am I from, New Jersey?
What?
So with that said, yeah, how you can do it, from what I've seen, the primary website providers that some OEMs have selected as their number one and only approved vendor, they actually have all the capabilities in the world to be really good website providers, and some of the restrictions that the OEMs put on them, whether it be sliders or layouts or whatever, do a bit of a disservice. I'd say the more you sit down and really understand what your website provider is capable of delivering for you, just maximize it out to the best of your ability, or you go with a secondary provider. I know the OEM website providers hate me saying that, but if you know for a fact through data that they're not delivering the customer experience that you expect to give them, and for some reason you are hamstrung or handcuffed from being able to do that, then go with a secondary provider, go with a DealerOn or somebody else who can be that primary provider for you and use the other as a secondary. Simple as that.
Okay. Mike says, yes, but Joe, doesn't OEMs require second sites to follow their rules still?
To an extent, yeah, to an extent. You are at the behest of your OEM. But still, some things you don't have to be. You have to be when it comes to some images and some sliders, but when it comes to actually like functionality and how to navigate through your site and like all the different navigation channels that you have to take people down through, usually another website provider is able to be a little more flexible with it.
Ooh, we've struck a nerve here. Okay, so AJ was one of the people who wrote, and he says, no, it shouldn't. It's not their site. And Mike wrote back, and he says, worst term ever, compliant. So there you go. With that, I'm going to say, Joe, Omeed, thank you so much for being here. Any final words or advice to pass on to the audience?
Thank you, Omeed, very much for carrying this thing. And moreover, like I said, he is a wealth of knowledge, and CarStory has a lot of great data. So just going to CarStory.com to give them a plug and them a shout out. Like you can go to, I think it's like dealers.carstory.com. DealerOn, if you are a DealerOn client, they can put what are called cars for free on your SERP and on your VDP. It's free, no strings attached, and DealerOn and I think dealers.carstory.com can get that set up for you. It's a wealth of data for both your salespeople and the customers to make your VDP bring more valuable, insightful information to your customers, to your shoppers that will only benefit your store.
Thank you. Omeed, anything from you?
Subscribe to my newsletter too, DealerKnows.com, right on the homepage, email address. I write a lot of good stuff. I'm pretty entertaining.
Okay. Omeed, any final nuggets you want to pass on?
No, thanks so much for everybody that joined. I really appreciate you guys having me, and best of luck. Please don't feel hesitant to reach out to me if you need anything. My email's on the deck. Look forward to hearing from you all.
I'll tell you, you are a fountain of knowledge. Thank you so much for your expertise, Omeed. Oh, and thank you too, Joe. By the way, David wrote in, I wish Joe would just say what he means and quit beating around the bush.
I know, I'm so filtered.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. And as They have, as you've already seen, audience, two of the nicest guys in the industry. If you have further questions or need some further advice, pick up the phone, call them, or email them directly. They are wonderful, wonderful people to talk to and knowledgeable and so very nice. Thank you both so much for your courtesies. Really appreciate it. I'd love to have you back on the show sometime in 2017. Fantastic presentation. I want to remind the audience that a link to download a copy of this webinar recording is going to be sent out to you in a couple hours, so be on the lookout for that. And today's webinar is also going to be posted online within 24 hours, so all you have to do is go to DealerOn.com/webinars, and from there you can view our upcoming webinar schedule or access any of our past webinars too. And yes, this webinar is going to conclude in just a moment, and when it does, you are going to get a short survey. Please fill it out. I loved it, but I want to know what you thought of today's presentation. So please fill out that survey. It's very short. It's only 6 questions. We want to know what you thought, okay? So please share. Also, DealerOn is going to be hosting another Top Golf event. This time it's going to be in Scottsdale, Arizona on December 7th. And yeah, we're going to have some people from Google there. We're going to have some people from DealerOn there. We're going to talk golf. There's going to be food and drink and all kinds of awesomeness. Space is limited though, so if you'd like more information on this amazing event, please check out the tiny URL on the screen now. It's tinyurl.com/ScottsdaleTG. Oh, I should mention, it's free. All of this awesomeness is free. So all you have to do is sign up and show up. Hope to see you there. And invitations will be going out tomorrow for our next DealerOn webinar, the new rules of social media for maximum results in 2017. It's not an understatement to say that the majority of dealerships struggle with their social media, and the rules of social media engagement are vastly different now from just a couple years ago. Have you kept up with the new rules of social media? For this important topic, we brought in social media heavy hitter, Scott Empringham. This essential 1-hour webinar is a detailed 3-part presentation where he's going to share his no-fluff practical guide for the technologically progressive dealership. Scott will first discuss global trends that are impacting you right now and Facebook secrets that you need to know. Next, he's going to walk you through the what, the when, the how to do social media in a way that generates immediate incremental sales and service appointments. And lastly, Scott will present you with a clear blueprint to jumpstart your social media efforts over the next 30 days and beyond. And in the end, attendees will leave with a step-by-step approach on how any dealership can double their influence, their leads, their sales, and their service with the very latest Facebook tools and techniques. And as a kicker, how to powerfully leverage both Snapchat and Instagram to drive millennials to your dealership. That's what we call a win-win-win, my friends. If you know that social media is integral to your dealership and you want to learn the new rules of social media for maximum results in 2017, then you can't afford to miss this presentation. So register now, and don't forget, DealerOn's weekly webinars are held Thursday at 12 noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions regarding these webinars and our topics, well, I'd love to hear from you. You can track me down online. I'm everywhere. I'm on Google+, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. I'm on all the automotive social networks. Or you know what? You can just email me directly at eliana@dealeron.com. Thank you all so very much for spending this time with us today, and I hope to see you all on another webinar in our continuing education series. Take care.